Music. If they're playing that music, it means it's time for Birds 365 with John McMullen and Jody McDonald. It's kind of a walkthrough Wednesday. You're not even walking through. It's an off day Wednesday for the Eagle players, but the coach hadn't made it a walkthrough day previously on Wednesdays. We don't even have that much. But somehow we're going to suck up 2 hours of content for you talking about the Philadelphia Eagles. How are you, JM?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I didn't think about that. It has been walkthrough Wednesday recently, Jody, so not that much difference from this week.
Right.
Off, walkthrough, same
nobody
thing.
Practicing is not that much difference than walkthroughs.
Mental reps, baby. Mental reps.
Okay, if you tell me so, I guess I'll believe that. Your desk okay? You got any desk issues
No,
today?
it's a pain in the ass. Thanks for asking. I hate it with all my heart. With the incendiary heat of 1,000 suns. That's how much I hate my desk.
Okay, yeah. Please don't beat up your desk. It's be kind. It's a bye week, and it's be kind to desk week. I just decided here on Birds 365. So don't beat up your desk during the show. We'll see if we do beat up anybody today. I would doubt it. We should be in a good mood. The Eagles are in a playoff contending position.
Yeah, how about that? Well, 4 games left, Jody. That's it. They're in it. They're going to be in it until the very end.
Very much coming down the home stretch. And yes, they are absolutely in it. In what was supposed to be a transitional year. We bring this up from time to time, and we should and we have to, because that's what Jeff Lurie described this season as way back when. Actually, it was, 10 months ago, Peterson got fired in.
It's when he fired Doug, and he said, Doug wasn't on the same page because Doug wanted to win. All of a sudden, which was one of the silliest things I've ever heard, but all of a sudden it's okay to want to win for the head coach. But that's another discussion.
Exactly right. Since they're just a half a game out of a playoff spot with 4 to play, hey, let's win. What happened to transitional? Man, it's a transitional position. See what I did there? That Jeff Lurie took, because you can change your goals and what you're looking to do, and you should. The Eagles absolutely should be thinking of themselves as a playoff team.
I would argue you should never, in the NFL, not think of yourself in that way, because we talk about it all the time with the Sixers. I mean, different sport, different setup. You don't have to do what the Sixers did in the NFL. So all this talk about rebuild, and, there's certain teams in this league. Detroit has won, Jacksonville, some of these teams, your Jets, Giants have started that cycle of being terrible, making bad decisions. But when you have teams and organizations like that, they're stacking together bad decisions. If you start making good decisions, you could have turned it around pretty quickly in this league. And you should never have that philosophy of, you can be realistic and say, well, we're not going to be a Super Bowl contender.
Right.
But you can start on the road back to being a Super Bowl contender very, very quickly in this league. Just make some good decisions.
A couple of key moves, couple of good decisions, as John calls it. All right, JM, yesterday was Coordinator Tuesday. I watched the videos all after the fact. I got to tell you, buddy, it looks like you and JG. Are you sure you and JG aren't going to watch the game together? Because whenever you get to ask him a question, he goes out of his way to say, "Hi, John." And he does so as if you guys have been pals for 20 years. I'm sorry, that's just the way that it plays on Zoom after the fact when Eagle fans like myself are watching it. He's your guy. Does he know how much you backed Jim Schwartz, his predecessor? Has anyone ever brokered that to him, that you were a huge Schwartzy fan? Somehow he's decided that you are the main guy that he talks to when it comes to media questions on Tuesday.
As with most things in life, first of all, John's only like 38, so he would have been 18 if it went back to 20 years. So we haven't known each other that long, but it more has to do with we both used to live in Minnesota for a while than anything else. So it's more of.
Did you know him when he was in Minnesota?
No, I was gone, but we knew a lot of the same people organizationally,
Okay.
coaching wise. So it more has to, plus the area, it more has to do with that than anything else. But yeah, I mean, I like guys who know football and understand football, can teach me about football, and that kind of defines Jim Schwartz and Jonathan Gannon different ways. But one's just a lot more friendly than the other. But just because Jim Schwartz isn't as friendly doesn't mean I'm going to lie to you and tell you the guy doesn't know a boatload about football, because he does. Um, so it's more that I respect their football knowledge than anything else.
So you asked him the schedule question. What's your schedule look like? It's kind of a different week. No game. What is your schedule going to be, JG? I thought he was going to say, well, I haven't decided yet. John, what are you doing Sunday during the Cowboys-Redskin game? I
Yeah, I
thought
was trying to get, but maybe I was trying to get the invite, Jody.
I was disappointed that it did not come. He kind of
No, it
left
did not get proffered.
left.
Because we were talking about part of that generated from what we were talking about. Because I was like you. I thought coaches are going to work because they always work, and we talked about that a little bit with Damo yesterday, and Dick Vermeil, and sleeping in the office. And it's the off week for the playoff players because that's collectively bargained, but nothing with the coaches. And Nick kind of mentioned that he was going to give them some time off as well. So I was interested to hearing the schedule. And we'll see. Hey, I go back to Doug Peterson. People consider Doug Peterson more old school, obviously, because he bridges the divide from the old school, the way it used to be done, into the new school. And he would do the same thing late in the season. He would scale back. He would start having walkthroughs on Wednesday, and that turned out very successful for him, even during the Super Bowl season and the playoff seasons that were subsequent. He would do that. So it is sort of I would say, a bigger philosophy than just the Eagles to scale things back later in the season from a preparation standpoint. And then from the coaching standpoint, I see both sides of the fence. I think guys go overboard. I told you that with this, I got to sleep in my office. I don't know how much more you're accomplishing than just, having a balanced life. But, it is probably a generational thing. But I will say overriding, I would say Nick Sirianni has turned out to be far more old school than I thought he was going to be. I mean, he's an old school football guy. He might be a young guy, but he's got old school thoughts when it comes to football.
I agree wholeheartedly with that. And actually, I think it's a good thing. Speaking of which, and yeah, we'll stick to the Eagles, but I do want to add this to the mix with you, run this by you, because your football opinion I hold on it as high as I do. I said this last night on WIP. There's an outside possibility that I could, in the upcoming postseason, in the AFC, root for the Patriots, which I've never done in my life. I'm a Jet guy. I'm a Jet guy. I've hated the Patriots my entire life. But I don't really like any other team in the AFC, and there's no guy that I root for. No, I like Tua, and the Dolphins are a team that I've always hated too, so that's weird. But I could find myself actually rooting for Belichick for one reason and one reason only. He doesn't attempt to solve football with an algorithm. That he's talk about old school. You're telling me Nick Sirianni's an old school coach. Who's older school than Belichick in the NFL right now? Answer, nobody. And he's doing it this year, and I didn't see it coming. I don't remember. You said, watch out for the Patriots. They're right back on top this year. Nobody saw this coming. And sure enough, they're atop the AFC, best record right now. And if he can win another Super Bowl, it would put all those – yes, the entire world of sports can be figured out with the correct algorithm back on their heels where they belong, because it has gotten out of hand that analytics solves the world in the world of sports. So I mean, can I really end up rooting for Belichick, J-Mac?
Well, I've always said about Belichick, I don't root for anybody, to be honest, but I have tremendous respect. So I go back to another Boston area player because my team when I was young was the Sixers. The Julius Erving Sixers. That was my favorite sports team of all time, and I hated the Celtics. I mean, that was when it was the greatest rivalry probably in all of sports, Sixers Celtics. And Larry Bird, I couldn't stand him. I hated him. Every time I saw him, I wanted to, typical fan behavior. And then as I got older and got past it, I was like, wow, that guy was good, man. I just learned to respect him and just, how good he was at everything. And now I'm like, if anything, I'm a Larry Bird guy because, I think he's underrated when people talk about best NBA players of all time. He was so good. I've always been that way with Belichick. People say cheat. I mean, he is so far ahead of everybody else. I always say, you rank the coaches, everybody ranks the coaches. You start at 2, and 2 shouldn't even be number 2. It's like 1, then a bunch of empty spaces, and then you get to 10 or something of that nature. And it's probably Andy Reid, another old school guy. But I want to give Albert Breer credit, and I didn't even know you were going to bring this up, but I was talking about it earlier on a different show, and Albert wrote something about analytics and how it's become this catch-all term, and I agree with him because people just throw it out there as an all-encompassing thing. And he mentioned, what it really is, and I was trying to get Ryan Paganetti on the show. We were talking before we started. He's the Eagles game management coach. We've had him on before, and under Doug Peterson. And, it's all about finding inefficiencies. That's what analytics really is. And nobody's ever done it better than Bill Belichick from day one. So people talk about like analytics is this new school thing. Belichick has always been, I find it ironic that the 2 most innovative coaches in the NFL, and I just mentioned it, Bill Belichick and Andy Reid, are 2 of the oldest. You throw Pete Carroll in there as well. It's not about youth or new thinking. It's about finding something. I've been saying this for years. I've said it to you, Jody. At some point, somebody is going to look at 250-pound linebackers who are out there to cover and not do anything, and they're going to put a 3 tight end out there and just run the football down their throat. And of course, it's Belichick. It's already been Belichick. He would do it in December. The running game doesn't matter in the NFL until it matters, until the weather turns, until you need it. And then all of a sudden, these teams are scrambling from both ends because they don't like it, they don't practice it, they don't do it. And by they, I'm not saying everyone. The Eagles are doing an efficient job, but a lot of teams, and then even more so defensively. Well, we don't want 240-pound linebacker. Get out of here! I don't want him. He can't help me. And then all of a sudden, you need a 240-pound linebacker, or you're getting blown off the ball.
Right.
Belichick recognizes all this stuff, and he recognizes it. I think the key is far quicker than anybody else. And you when I say the name Ernie Adams, most people don't know. And he might be one of the most important people to that Patriots dynasty because he's sort of the guy who analyzes and has been for Bill Belichick for years and years and years and years. And he kind of finds these inefficiencies. And even taping signals. I still don't know. I still don't know why people are so upset by that. I really don't. And people get mad at me for this. I'm like, if you can tape a signal in game with a 40-second play clock, and you can utilize it and communicate to your players, Godspeed. Because I know these other teams can't do it. They can't call a play in 40 seconds. Never mind decipher what's going on the other side and communicate it to its players. So I've always had tremendous respect for Bill Belichick, and yeah, he's the GOAT, and number two's not close.
Well,
Is how I
I
describe it.
disagree with you there. I think Vince Lombardi truly is close. I think those two. I think it's 1 and 1A, and then there's a big drop off. And yes, I know Belichick has his behind the scenes guy who does number crunching for him, but if Ernie was working for someone else other than Belichick, would it have the same effect? I don't think so.
No. Well,
I think
they wouldn't
Belichick,
listen, Jody. They wouldn't listen. That's part of it as well. You have to be. I always say, and I always use Chip Kelly because people would say Chip Kelly's a joke. Chip Kelly's a joke. I remember when he came here, Bill Belichick, for joint practices, and they were saying how overmatched Chip Kelly was. You know, Bill Belichick doesn't respect Chip Kelly. Bill Belichick's going to run the practices. Bill, this, that. You saw all this narrative. Bill Belichick loved Chip Kelly. Loved him. I mean, loved him. He enjoyed his thoughts on football, and he would invite him to Patriots practices long before he became a coaching star, because he saw the innovative things he was doing at the college level, and he picked his brain, and he picked his brain, and he picked his brain. But I always say what Belichick has the ability to do is take the good things from people,
right,
and throw out the trash. And that's what he did with Chip Kelly. He saw the pace, the tempo, he saw what it was doing with teams, but he also knew you had to have the ability to take the foot off the gas depending on the situation of the game. He had a quarterback who could handle things at the line of scrimmage. And that's where Tom Brady and Peyton Manning as well in Indianapolis sort of changed the modern NFL. Guy's just smart, man.
right. But as you accentuate Belichick's positives, you do kind of prove those who badmouth Chip Kelly we're onto something, because there were aspects of Chip Kelly and what he could do around football and his thought process that were brilliant, and there are others that were just destined to failure, that there was no way they were going to work. His pomposity and the fact that it's always got to be 100,000 miles straight ahead and the like. Belichick realizes that it's a really big picture, and I can take a little snapshot, aka Chip Kelly, and use him to fill out my picture, but he would never do it Chip Kelly's way. So those who chastise Chip Kelly, there was playing chastise. You should give him some credit for some of what he did, but there was plenty to point out that Chip Kelly was woefully overmatched as an NFL head coach. That's my take on Chip Kelly. I haven't changed my opinion since the day he was hired till the day he's gone, and now coaching UCLA. And UCLA this year was a perfect example. He had things and aspects about that team that were tremendous, and he had other things that were woefully wrong. I watched him play a lot of games because I'm up till 2 o'clock in the morning on Saturdays, and they are often the late night game. And yeah, I'm not surprised that it was a Chip Kelly coach team, because certain aspects of it, phenomenal. Other aspects of it, why the hell would you do something like that? That's Chip Kelly in a nutshell. Nobody ever said that about Bill Belichick, that's for sure.
Yeah, there's so many things even in the, Chip ushered into the modern NFL. So many offensive concepts that people use today that he doesn't get credit for. But what he didn't do, you're right, Jody, he didn't realize the situational aspect of the game. He didn't realize the roster wasn't, 90, 100 deep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you had to, maybe give a walkthrough to a veteran player who's been playing for 15 years to get him through the season. So he didn't manage this up, and he didn't, he's a very aloof guy, and he doesn't connect with people. Nick Sirianni's first, his whole thing is connection. You got to connect with people. Chip Kelly didn't connect with people. He just didn't.
Nobody. And Sirianni.
Did I ever tell you that story? The first time I saw Doug Peterson walking down the hall at the NovaCare complex, I was with Ed Bankin, the old your old buddy from WIP, KYW, and we're just coming off Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly would not make eye contact with you. We were still allowed in the building with you at that time, pre-COVID times, obviously. And every once in a while you'd run into people, and Chip would not even look at you. He didn't want anything to do. And Doug comes walking down the hall. I'm used to the other head coach, and and Doug's like, "Hey guys, what's up?" And I'm like, "Hey, coach." I was startled. I wasn't expecting anything. But at the time, Jeffrey had brought up, Jeffrey Lurie had coined the term emotional intelligence, which I
yes.
mocked, as many people did. But that's why Jeffrey talks. Jeffrey talks in corporate buzzwords, which I think is silly. But it resonated in what he was talking about. And then more so with Nick Sirianni, you go full circle with the connection, different term, same thing. If you're going to be the head football coach, you gotta have some emotional intelligence. You got to connect with people. Chip couldn't do that. Probably still can't do that.
And oh, by the way, that's one of the reasons why I think Belichick liked Chip, because for public consumption, Belichick is a non-connector. He's not going to. And now he can get away with that because he's got as many pelts on the wall as he does. He can be Mr. I'm going to handle you people the way that I want because I can. But behind
Yeah. But
closed doors,
the one thing I would say different about Belichick, and everybody says, Andy Reid as well, is this way. They have tremendous senses of humor. Like that's public for public consumption.
right.
Behind the scenes, they're like joking around, and it's hard for people to imagine. They do connect with the people they have to connect with. You don't have to connect with media people. That stuff's outside. I just brought that up as a nice term, seeing a guy who's affable versus a guy who, is guarded, or whatever term you want to describe. But Andy has a great sense of humor. Belichick has a great sense of humor. So around their people, they do connect. They're not just the hoodie, get out of my way. You're that type of thing.
There's a public persona, there's a behind closed doors persona. And the guy who told me about Belichick, who I absolutely trust and believe, is Gary Myers, who we've had on the show several times.
There's a New York guy.
Well, and I don't think it's got anything to do with New York, but Gary's a Hall of Fame voter, and he was
Yeah.
part of. They had that extra large committee, the 100-year anniversary, when they put in that many more guys in the Hall of Fame,
Yeah.
and they
Bill was
brought
a big
in.
part of that. Yeah.
Right. They brought in non-voters on top of it, and Belichick was one of them. And they had their meetings in this gigantic conference room, and there were no assigned seats. And Gary went in and just put his stuff down at a chair and went about talking to other people because he got there 20 minutes more before the meeting started. And then the meeting gets to starting, and sure enough, who's sitting next to him but Belichick? And he didn't specifically sit down to sit next to Belichick and pick up. He just put his stuff at the table, and Belichick happened to put his stuff right next to Gary Myers. He said he learned more in those 2 days over those 8 hours that they sat there. And he said, couldn't have been a better guy. Just a regular Joe shooting it, what about football, cracking an occasional joke and laughing and everything. He said, Jody, was like 2 of the best days I ever had in my life. I had no idea. Just by chance it happened that I happened to sit next to Belichick. But I still will always consider him, although you're right. He has certain people behind the scenes that he takes information from, that stay in the shadows, that don't come out front to get attention and or be part of the lauding when they win championships. He's an old school guy. Belichick's old school. He might be smart in that he can pick out deficiencies, and he may have someone in his ear whispering to him, but then he implements them and he gets it done on the field. That's why I'll never look at Belichick as an analytics kind of guy, and it may even get me to root for him. All right, we come back here. Mike Sielski is going to join us, hour number 2, lead columnist in Philadelphia. 2 things I want to do when we come back. Number one is I want to talk to John McMullen about quarterback controversies. You wrote a column for Philly Voice, which I take some exception with, that pointing the finger at Philadelphia as a quarterback controversy city. You and Keyshawn Johnson. I got a problem with both of you 2 guys.
Oh, you love Keyshawn. He's a Jet. Come on.
No, I don't. Just give me the damn ball. No, I don't love Keyshawn Johnson. And how quickly Keyshawn forgets, like he never played a team with a quarterback quandary. That's all we've got here. There was no controversy. I know people saw it coming and thought it was going to happen. And when Gardner started completing pass after pass, we got a controversy on our hands.
Well, by the way, I wrote that after the game. I'm actually impressed that how little Eagles fans have not taken the bait, which surprised me a little bit, to be honest.
I'm here to defend Eagle fans today. It didn't
Wow.
happen. No matter
No.
how hard Keyshawn Johnson and or John McMullen attempted to paint the picture of the incoming quarterback controversy here in Philadelphia, didn't happen. The coach put a kibosh on it. So I want to talk about that. And then we got some downtime between weeks of the Eagles playing football. I'm going to get Professor McMullen to give out a couple of grades. It's as good a time as any. I know we usually do halftime grades, midway
there is
grades,
no halftime,
midterm grades.
Yeah.
We're
three-quarters
of the way home.
Three-quarters grade, even though there's no 3 quarters. I hate 17 games, Joe.
So do I. You and I are on the exact same page. I hate it. How long do you think it's going to stay 17? How long before they get to an 18th game?
Not long, couple years, but I don't like 18 either. I mean, you don't have the half. Yeah, you can have the half, but you don't have the quarters.
I'm not good at math, but 18 divided by 2 is 9. I can do that.
You don't have the quarters.
No, you're right. Then you don't have quarters. 16 was the perfect number, but I'll take 18 over 17, and I'm with you. One more year. The question is it going to be only one more year? Or is it going to be 2 more years? There's no way we go 4 years of 17 games. It's either going to be 2 or 3, but we will get to an even number again at 18. But despite the fact that the math's not great, I'm going to ask Professor McMullen to grade out the Philadelphia Eagles, certainly position by position, maybe even individual player grades. 3/4 of the way through. And that last quarter can move the needle that much more. You have a big last quarter. You can jump up from a C- to a B+. I'll put Johnny Mac, I'll ask him to put his grading hat on. Here with us on Birds 365.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit. The glass is for cocktails, right?
It's for this, this, and that.
Is the length of the glass equal to your...
You betcha.
But is it made out of...
Glass?
Yeah, okay, but is the rip...
Smooth?
Will you stop doing...
That?
I'm the professional here.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. All from the company that's highly awarded. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and deliciously tasting vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messa & Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messa & Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
On a walkthrough Wednesday here on Birds 365. You got McDonald and McMullen, your Mac and Mac guys, hanging with you. Trying to get through a week without Eagles football. Not easy once you get into the rhythm of it and you play every single week. As I've said, I started saying weeks ago leading up to this week, and we'll continue to say it through the week. It's a good thing where the Eagles are right now. They had to endure. They had to wait out the latest bye in the history of the National Football League. But now that they're in it, that's a plus. They have an advantage over everybody else who's into the grind of the home stretch of the NFL season. They're not. They're resting. They're relaxing. They're throwing their feet back up. John McMullen may or may not get together with Jonathan Gannon to rest and relax this week. We'll have to wait and see about that. All right, JM, I'm going to pimp you, and I'm surely going to pimp Keyshawn Johnson a little bit. The great quarterback controversy in the greatest quarterback controversy city in America, Philadelphia, and their QB situation. Oh, sorry, there's no quarterback controversy. The coach came right out and put a kibosh on it. Listening to WIP, checking their poll results, and our buddy Brandon Lee Gouton put up a poll on Bleeding Green Nation. No. Pretty much across the board support for Jalen Hurts. No 50-50 splits. No guy coming off the bench immediately jumping to the head of the line to become the Eagle quarterback. It never was a quarterback controversy. And although people might have projected it and predicted it, it never rose to that level. That's why here Monday on Birds 365, I had to go to a hypothetical question to see if we could get into the thought process of, can this become a quarterback controversy?
And by the way, you came up with it. It's not over. It's not over. It's probably over at halftime of the Washington football team game. Jalen plays well. It's over. If he plays poorly, oh man, somebody just squirted lighter fluid on this thing. So it's not over. I am a little bit surprised that it didn't ignite a little bit in a quicker fashion, which I give the fan base credit for. Look, I knew before the game there was no controversy. I mean, I was flat out told. I mean, he's the starting quarterback. I said it on the show. Doesn't matter what Gardner does. I didn't expect him to play that well. I also said that. I thought they beat the Jets. I thought he'd, make enough plays to win the game. And I thought there would be struggles at times. He was darn good in the first half, especially. And obviously the second half, they just ran the football. 158.3, Jody. You can't get any better than 158.3 in the NFL when it comes to passer rating. That was Gardner Minshew's passer rating in the first half. By the end of the game, it was still 133.7, I believe, was the final, which is the best number in Philadelphia since the NFC Championship game and Nick Foles. So it's been a while since Philadelphia's seen quarterback play like that, even against a bad opponent. Because, there's been plenty of games against bad opponents since that NFC Championship game. Nobody has performed as well statistically as Gardner Minshew. I'm shocked more people didn't jump on it when you add in the fact that the personality, the bomber jacket, the hugging his dad, the dude, the Big Lebowski act. I'm as shocked as anyone. I think I think it comes down to people just like Jalen Hurts.
That's part of it.
I think they just like Jalen Hurts. If this is Carson Wentz, boom. I mean, it is exploded. So many other quarterbacks. You know, Mike Sielski, we're going to have. He just wrote a column a little while ago talking about, you know, the history. You've been here the whole time. The history of backup quarterbacks in this town. It is what it is. Why did it stop here? I don't know. Maybe you got a better explanation for it than me. Why did it stop here? Because I don't have the full explanation.
Because I think, well, you're right about. I think the town likes Jalen Hurts for his take charge attitude and all the people talking about how good a leader he is and has quickly become the man in that locker room. I think that people acknowledge that. And I think the fact that give a nod to the head coach, he shut it down. The game was only over. He didn't say, well, Jalen will be our quarterback going. Of course he's the quarterback. He put that exclamation point on it by saying, of course he's the quarterback. Yeah, that took the wheels, the wind out of the sails.
Can I ask you something about that, Jody? Because as I said before the game, you know, Nick essentially shut it down with us far more emphatically than what he did in front of the cameras, to be honest.
John, that's irrelevant because nobody knew what Gardner Minshew was going to say. And no one, you just threw out the quarterback numbers that he put up perfect.
No,
I 133
understand.
at the end of the game. What he said before the game is nice. What he says after the game and Gardner's done what he's done is 10 times as important as what he said before.
My larger point is not what Nick is saying, why people accept it. You know, other coaches have tried to shut down quarterback controversies. Doug Peterson has tried to shut down quarterback controversy. Nobody cared. So I have a hard time buying that part of it simply because why do I care what the coach says? If they think the other kid can play, they're not going to listen to what the coach says. So I agree with you. He emphatically shut it down, but I don't know if that would have resonated had the starting quarterback not been popular, as in, i.e. Carson Wentz, with a large, and by the way, Carson was popular with a lot of people, but he was, for whatever reason, very polarizing. There was a group who disliked him. Jalen Hurts doesn't seem to have that group that dislikes him. And believe me, the group that disliked Carson Wentz, Doug Peterson could have said exactly what Nick Sirianni said. What was it? Absolutely. Whatever phrase he used, I forget. He could have used that same term. Nobody would have cared. So I don't think it relates to the coach shutting it down as much as it relates to, and I can't really explain it because that passing offense was a heck of a lot better with Gardner Minshew than Jalen Hurts. Maybe they just like to run the football, and they like running the football.
There is part of that here in Philadelphia. Always like to run the football. All right, then let me start there. Since we're going to do grades for the Philadelphia Eagles, the 3/4 through the season year grades, because I got into a little debate about this last night on WIP. What kind of a grade would you give Miles Sanders so far this year?
See, I mean, he's been out for a while. He's been ineffective in parts of the game. Still a good player, but I think, I put expectation. If I'm giving a grade, I'm putting expectations in there as well. He certainly hasn't lived up to expectations, but I don't think he's had a poor season. So I give him right in the middle. If I'm grading, I give him a C.
Quickie Eagle trivia quiz for you, John McMullen.
Well, if you're going to go down, I'm not a stat guy. So Miles puts up stats, but
then what are you basing your grade on, if not including statistics?
Because Miles is supposed to be the running back one of this team. He can't get involved in the passing game until Gardner Minshew, by the way, takes over the offense.
Right. So
nonetheless.
So is that Miles' fault that he hasn't been as good in the passing game?
But because I'm also Miles had trouble with other coaches, other quarterbacks as well. So it's one game. That was just tongue in cheek. And Ed was great. It was a positive sign that he got involved. He's not the best at pass protection. I use my Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith comparison with Miles Sanders. Now I know it's Hall of Fame.
Right.
I know it's Hall of Fame players, so people need to
on a lesser
understand.
level. I think
Yes.
most people
I
understand
hope,
where you're going.
Jody, but
Yeah.
I've gotten in trouble. I hope I'm trying to
Okay.
clarify. Miles is a great runner. He is not a great running back. That's how I describe Miles Sanders.
The question I was going to ask you again, if you don't want to deal with it because it is statistically based, the Eagles' all-time leading running back in yards per carry. And I do think there is a significant importance to that specific statistic because you can have different teams with different philosophies, different quarterbacks, different coaches, everything else. But when you're putting up yards per carry, that takes everything because it's an average and it comes out to all encompassing. He is the Philadelphia Eagles, not this year, not over the past 2 years, all-time leader in yards per carry for any running back that has over 1,000 yards. Yeah, there's been a couple of guys who carried it and they had 3 carries in their career and one of them they busted for a long one. So that doesn't count. But if a running back has 1,000 yards for their career, he is the leading all-time running back in the history of the Philadelphia Eagles. I think Miles Sanders gets disrespected in this town.
Well, and I said, I'll volley back to you. What did I say? He's a great runner. He's not a great running back. It doesn't surprise me. In fact, I'm a little bit surprised, if anything, that Miles hasn't had the home runs that he has in the past. But you brought up, is it his fault if the quarterback is not struggling in the passing game, which is fair. But then I would ask you the other end of the spectrum. Okay, how do we weigh in with this offensive line, which has been, if not the best in football, maybe the second or third best in football? You saw New England there in that conversation. Cleveland would probably be in that conversation. So where does that enter into the picture when you look at Jordan Howard, who was off the scrap heap, and his yards per carry right now is better than Miles Sanders? And that guy was done and went in front of the camera and said, I thought I was done. Nobody was calling me. And he's averaging more yards per carry than Miles Sanders. So where does the offensive line factor into it? And that is a larger question of why I'm not going to look at a black and white number and say Miles Sanders is a great running back when he's not, and he's not having a great season. And by the way, Jody, he'd be the first to tell you that. He's a little bit disappointed in how things have unfolded.
I didn't, and I wouldn't call him great. I'm just saying better than C. And I think just generally here in Philadelphia that Miles doesn't get enough credit for what he's done in his 3-year career. But I do want to ask you about this, and you kind of alluded to it. He's got 0 touchdowns. His first year with the Eagles, he had 6. Last year, he had 6. This year, he's got none. And yes, the quarterback, with the fact that he runs in touchdowns, is going to take it away from a Miles Sanders. But Howard has 4, and Scott has 3, and Gainwell, when you count in passes, has 4. So the other running backs are at least getting a taste. Yes, Jalen's sucking up a lot of the touchdowns.
By the way, Kenny's
got... is they scored the touchdown. Doesn't matter who gets them, but when we're going to do stuff like giving guys grades and analyze what kind of a season they had, we got to use something, and touchdowns are part of it, and he has none. Is that a coincidence? Is that something you could hold against Miles Sanders? Because personally, I'm kind of shocked that he has no touchdowns this year.
By the way, Kenny's got 5 now, but Kenny Gainwell. But it's not. Touchdowns are about, if you talk to the analytics people, it's about opportunity. So it's not that big of a deal, except from this philosophy. I'm a little bit surprised he hasn't had the big touchdown, running it in from 60, 70 yards. You'd think he would have gotten one of those by this point. What it does tell you is, and again, I go back to my Sanders-Smith comparison. Barry Sanders was often taken out at the goal line. Wayne Fontes would get criticized because people didn't understand At the goal line, you can't dance. It's great in between the 20s and the goal line. Everything's you can't. You got to go straight ahead. You got to hit the hole, and he doesn't do that as well as Jordan Howard. Certainly, he doesn't do that as well as Boston Scott. He doesn't do that as well as Kenny Gainwell, which is, a really undersized guy. It's just his style of running is not what you want inside the red zone, more inside the 10-yard line. So when you get in that, he's going to have to score from 20 yards out. That's Miles. They're going to go to somebody else inside if Jordan Howard's healthy, Boston Scott's healthy. Last week it was Kenny Gainwell. They weren't even healthy, and they put him in the red zone at times. And Jalen Hurts, obviously, you brought up. I mean, Jalen is the biggest part of the red zone package of this team when it comes to the running game. So I don't think it's a big deal. I just think it tells you his style and one of the reasons why he doesn't get the opportunity to score touchdowns when you get inside the 5 and 10-yard line.
All right, how would you grade out Boston Scott?
Boston for his role again, and people are going to say, I would say for his role, I'd give him a solid B. And I know people are going to go, how could you give Boston for his role? He's got a different role. He doesn't play as much for what he's asked to do. As Jonathan Gannon, as my buddy would say, is he playing winning football in his role? Yes. Yeah. I think Boston Scott has been playing winning football in his role. And that's why I'm grading on a curve here. Now, if you ask me who's a better player, Miles Sanders.
Right.
Who's been better in his role for this team this season? I would say Boston Scott has been more consistent in his role.
Yeah, that's where we agreed right up until that point. I think that Miles Sanders has done fine in his role. Injuries or injuries, shoot. Has anyone said, and Jordan Howard's kind of breaking down. He hasn't played in a couple weeks. Nobody mentioned that because yet expectations were expectations.
Well,
Jordan
that's
Howard
part of it
wasn't
too.
supposed to play for the Eagles this year. He's supposed to stay out of practice.
Wouldn't play for everybody. Yeah. I would say expectations, as I mentioned when I was talking, that's part of it too. Yeah.
Sure,
and there's no question about that.
All right, let's flip over to the biggest position of all.
But if we do, by the way, if we do go Jordan Howard, now obviously he hasn't played.
You gonna give him an A because expectations were irrelevant at the start of the season.
Hell yeah, I'm giving him an A. I didn't see it coming. Did you see it coming?
No shot, no chance.
And by the way, he hasn't played as much. But if you want to go, I'm trying to look it up right now. If you want to go Pro Football Focus grade, which we talked, Jordan Howard would be top 5 in the entire NFL.
Think so?
That's how well he's played. Yeah, they have him at top 5. Now he hasn't played as much, so he's not rated because he hasn't had as many reps. But in the small sample size he has, he'd be the 5th rated running back in the NFL. That's how good he's been.
That's pretty damn impressive. Where do they have Miles?
Let me look Miles up real quick. He's been playing a lot better. He spiked. He was down in the 40s. I think he's in the 20s now. So he's been playing a lot better recently. The last certainly. Wow.
The 100-yard game against the Jets is going to jump him up a couple.
Yeah, that was a career high for Miles in carries, and he missed his career high in yardage by only 2 with I think 120. So yeah, that spiked him up. He is 27. Yeah, he's up in the 20s now. 27 of 60. So just about over mid-range.
Yeah, at least he's in the top half. All right. Grading on the curve, taking everything into consideration, expectations, new coach and everything else. Kind of a grade would John McMullen give Jalen Hurts?
Solid B. Jalen's unique. That's the adjective I always use. Not conventional. The passing game looks ugly at times, but boy, he gives other teams headaches. He's tough to deal with. We've talked about all the positives. Even when he has a bad half, he tends to come back. Bad game. Even the Giants game, as poor as he played in that game, and he was bad.
Oh, yeah.
He was down there in the last drive, making plays, giving the Eagles an opportunity to win the game. He wears on opposing defenses. Carolina was like that too, and they won the game. They were terrible in Carolina. People forget because they won the football game. And he just made enough plays at the end to win it. And it's a unique thing. Again, you can't measure it with a stat. And that's why he's the starter. And they're not looking at Gardner Minshew's numbers, by the way, because they say, well, this kid offers us something Gardner doesn't. And I agree with them. Jalen Hurts is a better quarterback than Gardner Minshew. I can't give you empirical numbers to prove that, but he gives you a better opportunity to win than Gardner Minshew on a consistent basis. I think he's been solid. Certainly not great, but I think he's been solid.
And credit to Nick Sirianni and his entire offensive staff because they get the most out of Jalen Hurts. They, at the beginning of the season, bent over backwards to try and incorporate RPOs because they thought that was the best way to use Jalen Hurts. And the first game of the year it did, and then all of a sudden it didn't do so much. And they were able to adjust, and they were able to get even more run heavy, but put them under center. That didn't have to be an RPO. That they took some of the decision-making process out of his hands, and damn if it didn't work like a charm when the Eagles were running the ball like the best team in the National Football League. That's certainly Jalen's out there running the show, but that's Sirianni and him recognizing what they needed to do to get the most out of Jalen Hurts, and I think he's accomplished that this year.
Yeah, no question. I mean, the running aspect of it, the Eagles call it +1. He's almost at 700 yards, 8 touchdowns. I mean, we'll see how healthy he is down the stretch. I assume he's going to be back, no problem. For Washington, I assume he's going to be healthy. So if you do 60 yards a game, which, that gets you to 240, he's going to be really close to 1,000 yards as a quarterback running the football. Just a very, very unique player. I think that's the best adjective to use to describe him.
Fair enough. All right, let's move it outside. What kind of a grade would you give Devonta Smith at this point of his rookie year?
I think same B. He's so much better than every other receiver the Eagles have. I think, it kind of masks that he still needs to improvement as a rookie player. He's a great route runner, but he's probably not a consistent enough route runner. And that's something maybe you see from younger players at times, whether you're taking a play off or you're not going 100% or you're not doing this right or that. And I think that'll get better and better as he learns to be a professional player. That kind of stuff will tighten up. But he's got so much talent. He's always open. The numbers aren't phenomenal because they're not a passing heavy offense. So, I've told you this numerous times with, all the angst over Justin Jefferson and all the numbers he puts up. He wouldn't put up those numbers here. So when people say, yeah, he's much better than Jalen Reagor, that's not, obviously the Eagles made a mistake, but I think people say, well, you're going to put wherever he is now. He's already well over 1,000 yards, 1,300 yards. You're going to put 1,300 yards in the Philadelphia offense if they just make, no, that's not how it works. It's not. And that you'd have that type of production, maybe not that good, but you'd be near that with Devonta Smith if he had a different type of offense. But they don't have that offense right now. So he doesn't have the opportunities that maybe some other receivers have. Just a really, really good player.
You mentioned you think his route running can be a little inconsistent. I'm not sure about that. If you say so, well, I'll take your word. But here's what I think has been Devonta Smith's number one shortcoming, and this is going to sound real weird. He's not enough of a diva yet. And I don't like divas. I badmouth divas all the time here on Bird 365, anywhere else. I sit in front of a microphone. I can't stand the fact that some wide receivers in the National Football League are so over the top as divas. It just makes me want to pull my hair out. But there's something to it. The squeaky wheel gets the grease.
And he was pretty squeaky after the Giants game, both on the field. He's got that in him. He's got that in him. He wants the football. He wanted Nick Sirianni before the final play. He wanted the football. And by the way, the play was designed to go to Devonta Smith. And that was also one of the examples I was giving of route running. Not that he's not a great route runner. He's a great route runner. But he lost the attention to detail on that particular route. And so did Quez Watkins, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, Quez was the reason that
Nick explained it to us, and it was both of them. Both didn't do what they were supposed to do. But Quez, yes, more so. And Quez isn't a good route runner. So,
no.
But, when you have potential for greatness, you're probably a little bit more harsh. And he didn't do what he was supposed to do on that play as well, according to the head coach. And so both of them weren't doing what they were supposed to do. That affected the play. Jalen Hurts gets a lot of knocks for not getting the football out. Well, the receivers weren't doing what they were supposed to do either, so that reflects poorly on him at times, and the whole jumbled mess became the whole jumbled mess. But Jalen Hurts still put them in a position to win the game. But the larger point on that, Devontae's not, Odell Beckham, and he's not going to be that type of diva, but he wanted the football. He said he wanted the football, and they tried to get him the football. Obviously, it didn't work, but that to me is a positive. He wants the football in the biggest spots.
And that thing about that play and the analysis of the Watkins route that he ran inefficiently and Jalen not as efficient as it could have been. There was so much video out there of that shot. And everyone, he was open. How did he not throw the ball? He was open. He had separation. He really didn't. And here's what football fans just casual fans don't take into consideration. There's one view that matters on that play, and that's the quarterback's view. He's the one who's going to pull the trigger on the ball, and he has to see it. And if he can't see it, it doesn't matter if an angle from the right-hand side of the corner of the end zone makes it look like Devonta Smith had major separation. That doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is what the quarterback sees. And if he can't see the separation, he's not going to pull the trigger on that ball. And if you note that he wasn't exactly where he wants to be, I thought it was not as bad a route run as others did. But I saw on video that he was wide open. You saw it from a different angle than Jalen Hurts.
Well, we talked about it at the time. They're also not taking into account the pass rush that's getting there. And understand Jalen in his head understands what the play is as well. And again, when the route is not what it's supposed to be, and as Nick calls it, route discipline, it's not even necessarily, I think when people say poor route, they think, the wrong route, they went the wrong way, they did something wrong. When he's talking about route discipline, he's talking, you're supposed to be in a spot. Like, that's how fine-tuned it is. And, Quez was the far bigger culprit and basically should be. I mean, he's not a good route runner. Devonta is. So it depends on your expectations. Devonta wasn't in his right spot either. And that's probably more disappointing for because you expect more, to be honest. You expect more out of great players than non-great players.
And one of the things, again, that I think is understated often, there are guys out there on the field that are trying to keep you from doing what you're supposed to do. It's real easy to say, just run the route. If there's no one on the field, if air is defending you, then yes, you can always run a perfect route if you know what the hell you're doing. But when there's someone out there who's trying to bump you off, who's trying to take your spot away, who's trying to redirect you to get to the spot that you want to get to, that can be a problem.
Oh, yeah.
And
Devontae,
secondary,
and by the way, another positive aspect of Devontae, admitted, he didn't, from his perspective, he said he didn't win at the line of scrimmage like he should have. And he took complete credit for not running the route correctly, not winning at the line of scrimmage to where he could run the route the way it was supposed to be route. He took full responsibility for that, full accountability for that. So that's positive as well. Eagles have no issues with Devonta Smith. They finally got a receiver. Now they got to find some stinking compliments to that receiver. And they also have to up the passing game to be able, because, it's interesting. Devonta was also talking about the Heisman because it's coming up this weekend and was going to New York. I think he's still going. And he's obviously rooting Alabama to Alabama, but, he mentioned how difficult it was to win the Heisman as a receiver. I think he was the first since Desmond Howard. Sure. And if you think about Desmond Howard, it was a lot of his was kickoff return. He was like one of the best kickoff punt returners in college football history. He's like, somebody's got to get you the ball. I mean, you're a receiver. You're at the mercy of other people. And at Alabama, Mac Jones was also a finalist for the Heisman. So they didn't have a problem for that. But here with Philadelphia, if you're going to put up big numbers, somebody's got to get you the ball if you're a receiver.
Two things before we got to get to break here, Johnny Mac. Number one, who is the only kickoff/punt returner in the last 30 years more ballyhooed than Desmond Howard?
Rocket Ismail.
Correct. So overblown, so over. He changes the game. He revolutionizes the game. Oops, he didn't quite revolutionize the game. And the other thing about Jalen backing his former teammate for the Heisman coming up this week, and be nice to hand it from one Alabama guy to another. Did you see how big a favorite Bryce Young is going into this week's awards?
I did not. I'm rooting for the Michigan kid, to be honest.
Yeah,
he's not going to win, but I want to see a defensive guy.
Is zero. It's a nice little rooting interest.
Yeah.
Zero. Here's his chance of winning. No. Zero. Nada.
I know he's not going to win, but I wish.
Bryce Young is minus 4,000. That if you wanted to win $10, you would have to put up 4,000. If you want to win 100, you have to put up 4,000. So if you wanted to win 10, you have to put up 400. $400 to win 10. Holy mackerel! That's unheard of. That's outrageous.
It's not like last year. Last year you had the split. You had the Devontae.
Right. You had the debate.
Mac Jones split. Who else was a finalist last? Trevor, obviously, and I forget.
And he didn't have
the other one.
He didn't have a realistic shot because he didn't have that as good a year as everybody expected. It didn't keep him from being the number one pick in the draft, but it did seriously compromise it. My guy Justin Fields was also a Heisman finalist.
Yeah.
So
I think there's three quarterbacks this time. I think it's Bryce. I think it's Pickett, and the kid from Ohio State,
Stroud,
and then Hutchinson from Michigan.
Yeah. And all those other three guys have a good weekend in New York because you're not going up to pick up hardware. This one was predetermined. Bryce Young's going to get the Heisman come next week. All right, Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365. We've been musing about a couple of different things. I'll get Johnny Mac with a couple more grades when we come back, but also Mike Sielski, lead columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer, lead columnist in town, as far as I'm concerned, going to join us here next hour on Birds 365.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit. Glasses for cocktails, right?
It's for this, this, and that.
Is the length of the glass equal to your...
You betcha.
But is it made out of...
Glass?
Yeah, okay, but is the rip...
Smooth?
Will you stop doing...
That?
I'm the professional here.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. All from the company that's highly awarded. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and deliciously tasting vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messon Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messon Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Got it live here on Birds 365. John McMullen and Jody McDonald hanging with you. Mike Sielski scheduled to join us coming up in less than 15 minutes from now. J-Mac, I just wanted to throw a couple players by you to get grades at the 3/4 mark of the season, and you've given me some good insight and debatable grades on a couple of guys. One last offensive guy before we jump over to defense. What's Jalen Reagor's grade this year?
Boy, I don't like to give out F's, Jody. I think he's trying. I'm going to give him a D. Because look, I mean, the production's not there. The competence isn't there. Even when he does something good, like the 20-yard punt return, he flubs it and then picks it up to go 20 yards. It's not good. It's just not good. I was hoping you'd go Jordan Mailata because I'm giving him an A+.
A+?
He's been unbelievable, and especially with expectations. He's been one of the best left tackles in football. He's in the conversation to be the best, which is amazing.
Hold on. Expectations. What were your expectations of Mailata before the season started?
I thought he'd be a good starting left tackle.
Starting? Did you say starting?
I thought, I see what you're saying. I thought Andre Dillard would win the job, but I thought both would be competent starting left tackles. How's that?
Okay.
I thought both were capable.
I thought that's why you were going A+, because you didn't even think he was going to be the starting left tackle for the Eagles this year.
I mean, where he has come from to where he is, it is one of the most astonishing stories in football. And I mean, think about all the offensive linemen around this league who aren't very good and have been playing football, their whole lives and going through big time college programs and being big-time draft picks, and they can't play. And this kid is out there, and I met him the first day, and he didn't know how to put on his stinking helmet, and he's one of the best left tackles in football. It's amazing. It is an amazing, amazing story.
And here's where I hope that Jeff Stoutland's success rate and what he's accomplished with this team starts to permeate the other positional coaches. I'll put the coordinators in on this too, that they get to dictate more decisions going forward. Read into that wide receiver coach. Read into that offensive coordinator Shane Steichen. Read into that head coach Nick Sirianni in the fact that Jalen Reagor is still playing as much as he did. Stoutland came out this year and goes, my line is just better. I don't care what John McMullen says on Birds 365. He's not as good as the guy we used the first-round draft pick on. So he's going to be our starting left tackle. And I believe this. I don't know it. I'm not there. But my belief is that he kind of dictated that. And I'm hoping that someone soon dictates that Jalen Reagor is hurting us more than he's helping us. We need to get him off the field. Stoutland has the gravitas to be able to accomplish that. I don't know that anyone else on this coaching staff does.
No, plus I don't know if there's any that unique. And I want to catch myself because people, I get when I'm not very. Trent Williams still exists, so that's the best left tackle in football. That's one of the best offensive linemen who's ever lived. That guy's unbelievable. But other than Trent Williams, he's in the conversation for being the best left tackle in football, and that's still pretty stinking amazing. And yeah, I mean, there's those instances, and that's why it's so impressive. They're so rare. Where, I mean, think about Matt Pryor, which is a guy I hyped up as well and said the Eagles could get something for him, and they did, and he's playing well. And Indianapolis is very happy with him. I mean, there's a kind of kid I'm talking about. He's a solid player, been playing football all his life, plays at a high level in college, gets drafted, later round pick, but nonetheless, goes through the typical system and is really a success if you want to deem it as a 6th-round pick and where he is today in his career. That's the typical mode you see in the NFL with lesser round players in the draft or things like that. The kid who never stinking played before. It is amazing. It is amazing. And it's not just Jeff Stoutland. Jeff Stoutland is great, and he's the best offensive line coach in the league. Or, you put Dante Scarnecchia in there. He does things that no other offensive line coach can do. But you got to give Mailata credit too. I mean, that's just pure talent. And, it's not, in other words, it's not like Matt Pryor's turning into Jordan Mailata and even Andre Dillard's turning into Jordan Mailata as a 1st-round pick, or Sua Opeta, or, Nate Herbig. They're all better than they should be, but they're not Jordan Mailata. No, it's an amazing story.
Nobody's done what Jordan Mailata's done. That we are 100% in agreement with. All right, we want to get 2 more grades for you before we get a timeout and get Sielski up here. And these are both important for the Eagles. Probably more so in 2022 and 2023 than here in 2021. What do you grade Kayvon Wallace and McPherson, the Mac Attack, the other Mac Attack, as having accomplished in the first 3 quarters of the season? Because they were both draft picks. They're both guys that the Eagles have some equity invested in. And they've been up and down this year. At times I've seen a couple plays go, ooh, all right, maybe that is a future contributor. And there are other times where, ooh, unfortunately, they're in the lineup. Why are they playing right now? They've both been peak and valley guys. How do you average them out? What kind of grades do you give secondary guys, Wallace and McPherson?
Well, I haven't played that much, so I would lean towards the bailout of incomplete. But if I were forced to put
Yes, I'm
grades on,
forcing you to
you're
put
going
a
to
grade
force
on
me.
both of them.
I
Incomplete, not acceptable, Professor McMullen.
then I would put a D on Kayvon Wallace for this reason. He was supposed to play in front of Marcus Epps, and Marcus Epps is clearly better. Clearly better. So to me, that's a bit of a disappointment, not from the fact that Marcus is clearly better, because Marcus has played pretty well. And arguably he's been the Eagles' best safety, probably should be playing over even Anthony Harris and Rodney McLeod, to be honest, the way he's played. But they want the veteran leadership on the field. So, from where Kayvon was supposed to be, I'm a little bit harsher on him. He's not turning into that player. Still time to recover, which is why I would like to go incomplete. But if you force me, and you're forcing me, Jody, I'm going to go D. And Zach, he played a little bit better. He's gotten a little bit of opportunities since Darius Slay got banged up the first time, and Steve Nelson this time against the Jets. He's played better, so I've seen some improvement from him. I would put him in the C level. Wasn't good early. Was a lot better last week.
And it's funny because I remember doing shows with you. That's pretty much when we started Birds 365. We started in April before the draft, and then before camp was here. He had some good days at camp, and people got kind of excited about
Oh
him.
yeah,
Ooh, this guy could be a contributor. Step right in. Remember that they didn't sign Steven Nelson until into camp. They played the waiting game on him and got him probably at a number that the Eagles were more comfortable with. First time they talked to him, here's the Nelson asking price. Here's the Eagle offer price. They end up getting it done probably at about here. Probably close to what the Eagles wanted or not, because Howie Roseman did show a lot of patience with that. There was thought project. Zach McPherson might have to step in and play as a rookie.
Yeah, I was scared about that. Even when when Zach had a run, there was like a whole week where he had an interception every day at practice.
Right.
But he was playing against the second, third team. And then
was he playing against Reagor at all? Could he have gotten those picks against Reagor?
Maybe.
Do you remember any of that?
Remember, Jalen had some one-handed catches in training camp as well. So he was playing better in training camp. Jalen Reagor. But Zach was playing so well with the lesser teams, they started mixing him in with the ones, and that's when it got bad. And that's when it did get bad. And he took a big dip. And that's when he said, okay, this kid's not ready. He's not going to be a starter right away. But he's shown some positive signs. He really has. He's shown some improvement. I haven't seen that from Kayvon Wallace. I haven't seen that kind of improvement.
That's unfortunate. All right. He is John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. I see him on cue with us. When we come back, we'll bring on the lead columnist here in Philadelphia when it comes to sports, and that truly includes the Eagles, Mike Sielski of the Inquirer. Next here on Birds 365.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit. Glass is for cocktails, right?
It's for this, and that.
Is the length of the glass equal to your...
You betcha.
But is it made out of...
Glass?
Yeah, okay, but is the rip...
Smooth?
Will you stop doing...
That?
I'm the professional here.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. All from the company that's highly awarded. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and deliciously tasting vodka. So good, it just disappears.
field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messon Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messon Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
You got the Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365. We appreciate you tuning in on a walkthrough Wednesday. We're just walking through the bye week. But we need to give you guys some good insight and content. So that's why we bring a guy like Mike Sielski on, lead columnist for the Inquirer Sports section and Birds aficionado. How are you, Mr. Sielski?
I'm doing well, guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Appreciate you coming on. Let's get the promotional stuff out of the way, because I got a real question for you about your book with Kobe, the Mamba original story, coming out in just about a month from now. Is it better for the Lakers to be good or to be bad for your book sales? Because if they're good, yeah, then the Lakers are laying. Let's more about Kobe. But if they're bad, let's remember yesteryear when we had Kobe Bryant, and its LeBron honeymoon is not lasting all that long. Which are you actually rooting for?
Jody,
the good Lakers or the bad Lakers?
You are asking a question that I have, honest to God, have not contemplated at all. I would guess that it's better if they're good because they're more relevant. You know, just because they may win a championship or they're going to make a deep playoff run. But I think to a degree they're the Lakers. And so, you know, they're going to be talked about and interested in no matter what. So I don't know, to answer your question. Honest to God, I just hope people buy the book, obviously, because I have a wife and kids and I need to provide for them. And I hope the people who read it enjoy it and think it's a good book, and everything else is gravy. So we'll see.
Well, Mike, how about Nick Sirianni, at least locally?
I'd like him to buy the book. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, a little bit more Mamba. We're about 10 or so Mamba mentality references from the head coach.
Yeah, I'd give him 20 on the over-under for the entire season. I figured at least once a week and then maybe some more thrown in there for good measure.
Yeah, so Nick is helping. Nick is helping out as much as possible. But yeah, everybody buy the book. Listen to the podcast as well. So
thanks. I appreciate that, John. Yeah. Yes, listen to the podcast.
We are with the Eagles, so you take time off from upsetting Flyers fans, which I'm thrilled that you do. But so let's upset some Eagles fans, Mike.
Sure, I love it. Let's do it.
I'm a little bit stunned. I'm going to give Eagles fans credit here. No quarterback controversy in this of all cities. After Gardner Minshew, with that personality, puts up a 158.3, the perfect passer rating in the first half against the Jets. The best passer rating for this franchise since Nick Foles in the NFC Championship game. Why? Why are people behind Jalen Hurts?
I think there's a couple different things at work. I think, number one, expectations for the team this season were pretty low. So I think the feeling is there isn't a whole lot at stake depending on who you go with, right? So it's not as if we're talking about the difference between competing for a Super Bowl or not competing for a Super Bowl or winning a Super Bowl, right? Like that was the debate with Carson Wentz and Nick Foles. It was that Foles had won the Super Bowl. He was the guy who beat the Vikings in the championship game and Brady and Belichick in the Super Bowl. He did it. He must therefore be better than Carson Wentz. And there, of course, were people saying Carson Wentz is the reason they got to that point in the first place. Much less at stake this season. Do you get into the playoffs? Do you not? And even if you get into the playoffs, you're probably not going to advance very far. That's part of it. I also think the other aspect to it too kind of a similar point is that Jalen Hurts was not designated the franchise quarterback. So there doesn't come with this expectation that if he's not great, oh my God, the Eagles have made a mistake and they got to get somebody else in there who can win them games because the team is set up to win games, right? Like if Carson Wentz or Donovan McNabb, aren't great, if Wentz is turning the ball over or McNabb's throwing worm burners, then people come into it saying, well, you guys told me this quarterback was supposed to be awesome and he's not. Get somebody else in there. The Eagles have never really said that about Jalen Hurts. They haven't sold him as he's supposed to be awesome and we're going to ride him toward the playoffs and the Super Bowl. They've made it very clear, the Eagles, that they're unsure about him. So, you can be unsure about Jalen Hurts and you can be unsure about Gardner Minshew. And so the controversy kind of gets muted and tamped down a little bit.
All right. How much of it is, and believe me, I can state this with more clarity than anyone else in the Delaware Valley. The Jets stink. They're a bad football team.
Jody, you gotta wait till I put my coffee down, man. I don't want to spit take on your show.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to do that. I wasn't paying attention to you.
That's okay.
I was so narrow focused on how bad the team I root for is awful. I'm only half kidding. Tongue is only half implanted in cheek when I say I think I could have completed 9 of those 11 passes that Gardner Minshew started with. The wide receivers / tight ends / backs were so wide open. How much is it the Eagle fans recognize that, hey, nice that Gardner did it, but I could have done it against that Jet defense?
No, that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. I mean, even the second touchdown pass to Goddard was so open that Minshew could underthrow him and did underthrow him, and Goddard still made the catch and burrowed into the end zone. I think that's absolutely the opponent is absolutely a big part of it too. And I think the other aspect is the styles are so, like, Minshew didn't do a whole lot in terms, like, he ran the offense efficiently and effectively. He checked down to screens. He did things that Hurts, it's taken a while for Hurts to do, right? Like early in the season, Hurts was taking off and running a lot. And in recent weeks, up until the Giants game, he had been staying in the pocket, making some more good pocket-oriented throws, and it looked like he'd been developing and making some progress in that regard. But yeah, I think you're right. I think the fact that the opponent was the opponent plays into this a lot. Now, the flip side of that, of course, is that the opponent the week before, when Jalen Hurts was starting, stunk too. The Giants were just as bad as the Jets, and Jalen Hurts threw 3 interceptions and couldn't beat them. So, you can take both sides of it. But yeah, I think absolutely people are skeptical of Minshew just because, hey, it's like he beat a 1AA team out there, right? Like it's the Jets.
But we are in Philadelphia, Mike. So how many people are watching Jets film during the week? Jody's right. It's a terrible football team. But how many people know that? And are they that much more terrible than the New York Giants? Or, by the way, the New Orleans Saints with Trevor Siemian and no Alvin Kamara, both their offensive starting tackles out. The Denver Broncos, both their starting offensive tackles out. That never happens on back-to-back weeks. Nobody cared about that. And everybody was saying, hey, how great are the Eagles running the football with Jordan Howard and Boston Scott against banged-up, injured teams?
Yeah, but the injuries were on the offensive side, John. The defenses were fine, and I'll tell you, you kind of paraphrase it from Mike there, how much worse are the Jets and the Giants? Significantly on the defensive side. The Giants have some defenders in their secondary. The Jets have zippity-doo-dah. They got nobody back there in the secondary.
All right, fair. So we'll go forward, Mike. We'll put it back to you. Washington football team, good defense. Maybe not where it should be without Chase Young and Montez Sweat, but still good. And Jody brought this up, his fondness for hypotheticals. Say you show up after the bye, dismal first half. Eagles throw for 45 yards, but they're only down 10-3. They're still in the football game. You want to make the playoffs. Mike Sielski, what do you do at halftime?
Boy, that's a really good question. I think some of it depends on the nature of that first half. Is Hurts favoring the ankle that's injured? Is it clearly hampering him? If it's not, if it's just, take that out of the equation. If it's just ineffectiveness, I would be okay with going to Minshew. I think there's value in going to the playoffs. I think it will have shown you a little bit more about Jalen Hurts. I'd been kind of a soft advocate just from an experimental standpoint of sitting Hurts and playing Minshew just to see what the offense looks like. Because the analogy I used was like I said, a science experiment, right? And you need to be able to test different variables against the same set of standards. And you couldn't do that for a long time because both Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni were variables. You didn't know what you had in either one. Well, now you know a little bit more about both of those guys. So take Hurts out and put Minshew in and see if the offense looks similar to the one it did against the Jets. And if it doesn't, then you know more about both guys, right? Then you know, okay, maybe we know a little bit more about Minshew, a little bit more about Hurts, and even a little bit more about Sirianni. So I wouldn't be opposed to sitting Hurts and putting Minshew in there. I don't think the Eagles will do that. I think they will stick with Hurts to kind of avoid the headache and see how it turns out. I mean, you know, you can look at this one of two ways. You can look at it like this is a total, like, see what you got season. And if they lose to Washington and they don't make the playoffs, then you know more about Jalen Hurts and what you have, and you know what you need to do in this coming off season and beyond. Or you can say, hey, the playoffs are valuable. You have a chance to make the playoffs. You got to go with the guy who you think can get you there. And if that's Gardner Minshew, then you go with it. I lean probably more to the playoff end of things, but I could understand them going the other way too.
All right, Mike, I need you to speculate a little bit here because we're not there yet, but we'll be there before you know it. Sirianni's done the job that he's done so far this year. Certainly good enough by me. John, same thing. Everybody's got their opinions on where the coach sits as of right now. These next 4 weeks, the pressure gets ratcheted up. They are absolutely in a playoff push. Whether they get there or not, we'll find out. But they're in the mix. They are fighting for a playoff spot. That ratchets up the pressure. How's the coach going to handle it?
You know, if the arc of the season is any indication, Jody, I think he'll handle it pretty well, right? Like, that was how I was going to judge him the entire year, was whether the team got better. And the team was rough in the beginning, committing a ton of penalties. He was making what I thought were some poor play calling decisions. But things have generally gotten better. I don't think, with the exception of the early part of the Giants game, where you were rolling with running, you were running the ball over people for the previous 3 weeks, and you got away from it from a little bit too long against the Giants, and it cost you. With the exception of that, he's been doing what he has to do to have his team win games. The penalty numbers have gone down. They're not making as many dumb mistakes. So the indications to me are right now that if the Eagles don't make the playoffs, or if they, if they lose a couple of close games to Washington or even Dallas, it's not going to be because Nick Sirianni, choked or wasn't up for the moment. The team's gotten a little bit more competent, it seems to me, just about every week over the last 6 weeks, ever since that Las Vegas game, where I buried them. I thought, oh, this is a bad football team. Forget it. So, yeah, I'm willing to give him a chance to continue that arc and to continue that trend because I think it's been encouraging.
Yeah, I agree with you on Nick, Mike. I think we've seen that, he's a competent NFL head coach and and this will be important, these final 4 games. It's great experience for a rookie head coach to go to the playoffs, but I think we've all come to the conclusion that Nick Sirianni is going to be solid, and we'll see if he can grow from there. From these final 4, but because we've had this dichotomy this entire season, it's about evaluation. It's about what you have in Jalen Hurts versus, going all in. Jeffrey Lurie even brought up Doug Peterson. We're not on the same page. Doug Peterson wants to win, which I thought was one of the most silly things I've ever heard. And all of a sudden, here we are with Nick Sirianni. I'm only, like every coach, I'm only focused on the next game. I'm about winning that game. I'm not thinking about 2022. When it comes to Jalen Hurts and evaluation moving forward, do you know all you need to know at this point, or can you learn anything more over these final 4 weeks when it's Jalen Hurts versus Russell Wilson, the specter of Deshaun Watson or a first-round draft choice?
I think you can still learn some things. I mean, look, they've got what, 4 games left? I mean, that's basically a quarter of the season, right? Not quite a quarter of the season anymore. But yeah, you want to gather information. You want to see, and certainly these 4 games are much more important in that regard than the 4 games that Hurts started last year when they were dead in the water when he came in. So yeah, I don't see that as a reason not to continue to gather info on him. I mean, to me, this is one of the drawbacks, a big drawback in the way that the NFL salary cap and salary structure is set up, is that the Eagles feel like they have to make a decision about Jalen Hurts right now. They really do, because, he's cheap, basically. He doesn't cost a lot under the cap. So what does that mean? Does that mean we're going to try to build a team around him? Or does it mean we can easily ditch him and get rid of him so that we can go all in with a different quarterback? And 20, 30 years ago, in fact, I wrote this after they lost to the Chargers. You would it would in a way be easier. I'm not sure it would be better, but it would be easier to say, like, okay, well, we've got Jalen Hurts now. He's our quarterback. We're going to ride him as long as we can. And we take for granted it's going to take time to develop him, and we'll see how it turns out. Teams don't look at it that way anymore, because they feel like, they've got to capitalize on having a young quarterback who doesn't cost them a lot of salary cap space. So let's see if he can play. And, look at the Jets, look at Jody's team, Zach Wilson, right? Like, there are questions about him still, and the clock is already ticking on him, even if he might be the kind of quarterback that it takes 2-3 years to develop to get to the point where he can be really good. I don't know whether he's going to be good or not, but it's possible it will take him that long. So, to answer your question, John, I don't think there's anything wrong with seeing what Jalen Hurts can do over these last 4 weeks and then making the decision from there. I think it is conceivable you can give up on a guy too early, and you might as well make the most of it while you've got him.
Mike, I've been asking this question for the last several weeks here on the show, if not longer than that. So I'll put it to you too. Why is Jalen Reagor still playing for the Philadelphia Eagles?
Because he was a first-round draft pick. That's it. He was a first-round draft pick. Gone are the days when Buddy Ryan would cut Mike Bellamy because even though he was a second-round pick, because he thought he couldn't play. That's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. He's a first-round pick, and they're going to try to wring every drop of muffed kickoffs and dropped passes out of him before they are persuaded that they can give up on him. That's the way this works. Same, it goes back to what I just said about the quarterback position, right? Like, that's what makes the challenge with Hurts so difficult, is that he's not a first-round pick. They don't have as much invested in him. So he's got a higher bar to clear to be retained as a starting quarterback, because they don't have as much invested in him. Same thing with like Reagor compared to Quez Watkins. Watkins was a 6th-round pick. He's a bonus. So we're not going to, we're going to give Reagor every single opportunity because we drafted him instead of Justin Jefferson. And we better we better find out really and truly if he can't play.
But let me follow up there. You're right. The Jefferson Reagor comparison is going to go forever. But wouldn't it lessen if you just jettisoned Reagor, with him coming out and playing every week and flubbing a punt and letting the kickoff land and not catching the ball at the goal line? Isn't that just bringing more attention to the fact that they took Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson? If you just moved on from him, wouldn't that lesser the spotlight that the Eagles are under?
You're not thinking of this in modern pro sports terms, Jody. The longer you hold on to him and the more opportunities you get, the more chances there are, presumably, theoretically, for him to increase his value. So you might be able to trade him. I mean, we're looking at Jalen Reagor is a mini example of Ben Simmons in a way, right? Like, you can make exactly the same argument with the Sixers and Ben Simmons. Just trade him, get him out of here, start over. That's not what the Sixers and Daryl Morey are doing. They're holding on to him, hoping that conditions change so that they can extract as much value in return for him as possible. Now, do I think those conditions are going to be established at some point? Maybe, maybe not. But the Eagles are going to do the same thing with Jalen Reagor. Why just cut him when you might be able to get something for him?
Well, I'm not even talking about cutting him. The bench.
Well,
the nice spot on the sidelines.
Yeah, but then you're
his name on it.
Yeah, but then you're reducing his value. What team is going to trade for him then? You might as well just cut him if you're going to bench him.
Yeah. Well, okay, Mike, let's talk about the optics of it. So you're not only, I think you're right with why they're playing Jalen Reagor, but against the Jets, and we just lauded Nick Sirianni, but I do think he kind of, and Jonathan Gannon as well, I would throw into this, they kind of lose on the messaging part of things. Like Jalen Reagor played more than Devonta Smith and Quez Watkins. I know why, because they're playing 13 personnel. He's a crash test dummy out there to block. They don't want to get Devonta Smith at 166 pounds.
Right.
I get it, but other people don't get it. And Nick just defaults to it worked. The punter didn't come out until the last series or whatever in the fourth quarter. I'm not apologizing for that. You have to be better with the optics part of what you're doing when things like that happen. And Jalen Reagor gets more playing time than Devonta Smith.
Well, I think you have to be cognizant of it within the locker room, right? Like if Jalen Reagor is out there in personnel groupings that are going to help the Eagles win a game, and he wins a game, and they win a game, and he is performing his assignments in those situations to the best of his ability, if he's working hard, that's one thing. If Devonta Smith is coming to you and complaining that he's not getting the ball, which we don't know whether he is or he isn't, that's something else, right? Like that's true of any organization. It could be a football team. It could be a media company. It could be a business. You have to be cognizant of how your entire workforce is reacting to this kind of holding up of one or two employees to try to extract the most out of them, right? And if the other people in the business say, hey, look, this guy just doesn't have it, we shouldn't be running him out there, then that's one thing. And Sirianni has to be cognizant of that and has to take that into consideration. If Jason Kelce or Jalen Hurts or people like that are coming to him and saying, look, man, I can't throw the ball to Jalen. We can't throw the ball to Jalen Reagor, or what are we doing? Like, you know, we're wasting Devontae. That's one thing. If they're rolling over the Jets and Jalen Reagor is helping to set the edge on the outside when Miles Sanders breaks a 20-yard run, then maybe it's not that big a deal. But we're not in the room to know. So I think that's what it comes down to, and that's the thing that Sirianni has to weigh. I think the optics of Reagor gets more playing time than Smith, pointed out by guys like us, matter less than what happens in that room among the guys who know whether Reagor's playing hard, carrying out his assignments, doing the best he can, and is just not good enough.
All right, Mike, I put this poll question. I throw them up every once in a while on Twitter. Not often, but every once in a while, usually before I'm going to do a radio show, because then I get some play off it when I get on the air. If these are your only two choices, 1 and 2 and 2 and 1, not optional, the Eagles in their next 3 games, the Washington football team twice and the Giants once, are more likely to go 3-0 or 0-3. Which side you coming down on?
3-0. I think the Giants, because the Giants tip the scales for me. If you're going to make me pick one or the other, I think the Giants will be dead in the water. I think they will be dead team walking. They were dead team walking the other last week, and the Eagles threw it away. Yeah. So, you know, if you're going to make me pick one or the other, Jody, I'll say 3-0 because I think there's no way the Eagles lose to the Giants again.
Everybody. Damo said, we had Damo yesterday. He said that. I think, you know, I said it, Jody. I think you said it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Giants tip the scale for me as well.
Yeah,
you can't do that twice. You can't lose that team twice.
You guys read the coverage in New York of that team.
Yeah.
It is incredible. Like how there's just like a dark cloud over it for any number of reasons. And, you know, I mean, in a way, I feel bad for like a kid like Saquon Barkley who, you know, just the injuries and the situation. He was put in a position he shouldn't have been in with the number 2 overall pick. You know, all that stuff. It's just it's a bad scene up there.
And here's the funny thing. They're not even the worst team in town. The worst team in town is the one that the Eagles beat the snot.
That's right. New York football, back-to-back weeks. We had to watch New York football. It's It's not good, Mike.
No,
Now,
that's just
what is good, by the way, and I want to say this, Inquirer.com, Mike Sielski, great column on Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. But
thanks.
Bill Belichick against the Buffalo Bills in that weather, not throwing the football at all in the modern NFL. This guy just drives people's crazy. You saw it with Sean McDermott. He's in his head.
It was so fascinating to me, John, to watch that game and then watch the aftermath of that game, right? Like the two Bills players who got asked, like, were you embarrassed? And of course they were embarrassed. And even if they weren't, they were totally emasculated by what Belichick did. Belichick could have walked out in the middle of the field at the 50-yard line and screamed to Sean McDermott and the Bills, "We're going to run the ball down your throat." And the Bills couldn't have done anything to stop it. And what that leads to, I think, is you watch Belichick and what he's doing with the Patriots, particularly in a game like that. You watch Tom Brady and what he's doing with the Buccaneers. And it shifts the expectations for everybody else who covers or is involved with the league, right? Like part of the Gardner Minshew, Jalen Hurts debate is Gardner Minshew was a 6th-round pick too, just like Tom Brady. And every fan of every team who sees a guy like Minshew or Mike White with the Jets now hopes that that guy is going to be the next Tom Brady, because the greatest quarterback of all time was a 6th-round pick. And maybe we're holding the Willy Wonka golden ticket, right? You know, same thing with Belichick. He won a game by by just throwing it 3 times. That plays into every traditionalist who says, got to establish the run, got to run the ball to win, right? And it sets off debates, and it gets teams like looking at, you know, who should our quarterback be? Do we have something in Nick Foles? Like Nick Foles beat Tom Brady. We're the Jacksonville Jaguars. Should we give him a gigantic contract? And it just, the ripple effects of those two guys throughout the entire league is just fascinating to me. The way they are outliers and yet drive everybody else crazy because they're just so great.
And, oh, by the way, thank you for going down the Mike White road for the Jet fans who thought because he threw for 400 yards, oh, my God, the Savior has arrived.
Yes.
And then the next week he threw 4 interceptions. So for you Gardner guys this week are going, how can you possibly put Jalen Hurts back out there? Did you see what Gardner Minshew did? Yeah, remember, there can be 4 interceptions after 400 yards passing. So I just thank you for bringing that to light, Mr. Sielski.
Chody, you sound like the Billy Crystal character in The Princess Bride. Like, yeah, thank you for bringing up such a painful memory. Now, why don't you give me a nice paper cut and pour lemon juice on it?
Yeah, I'm sucking it up this week, getting it done here. I want to kill myself, but that's okay. I'm a tough guy. All right, are the Eagles going to be tough enough to make the playoffs?
Yeah.
Is this team intestinal fortitude, tough enough attitude? Has Sirianni built the character of this team to be good enough to make the playoffs?
I think if they stick with what was working for them the previous weeks before the Giants game, I think so. Look, I understand the modern NFL. I get you got to throw to score points.
Run the football, Mike.
Yeah, but with this team, that's what's going to work, right? That approach is what's going to work. Presumably you get Jordan Howard back. Presumably you get Jalen Hurts back. You know, and that's what you're going to do. You're going to you ride that offensive line, assuming Jason Kelce is able to play. That is your strength. That offensive line is so clearly far and away the greatest strength on this team. That's what you lean on. And I think if they do that, they can get into the playoffs. I do.
By the way, last one for me, Mike. You bring up Jason Kelce, just Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee for the Eagles. You've been around this town for a long time. You've seen every big-time athlete in every big-time sport. What does he mean to this city? What does he mean to this organization?
You know, I'm going to make a kind of an odd comparison here, John. I don't know that there's been an athlete since Allen Iverson who understood, who had the combination of being excellent in his sport and understanding the fan populace in the Philadelphia market better than Jason Kelce. Like, it's not just that he wore the Mummers outfit, and it's not at the Super Bowl parade, and it's not just that when he speaks about what it means to play in Philadelphia and how you can thrive here and why he loves playing here. that fans and media members go gaga over him. It's that he's a Hall of Fame caliber player too. Like, he's one of the 2 or 3 best centers of the last 15 to 20 years in the NFL. And that combination is really, really rare. It's funny to take this in a completely different direction. I'm working on a piece right now about Norm Van Brocklin, the quarterback from the 1960 championship team, who was as ornery a son of a gun as ever was. And his daughter recently found love letters that Van Brocklin wrote to his wife that show like this totally other side of the Dutchman. I was thinking about this earlier this morning before I came on with you guys. I was trying to think of like a present day athlete who would be that like intelligent and like emotionally intelligent enough to like Jason Kelce would be that kind of guy, like who would like write his wife these like really lyrical and heartfelt notes, because when he speaks about Philadelphia and what being an Eagle means to him, he speaks about it almost like, you know, he's a writer in some ways. Real
quick, Mike. 2 weeks ago, Jason was asked, you know, what's your definition of a tough guy? Because everybody talks how tough. And Jason has kind of turned into a little Dick Vermeilish. He gets very emotional at times. And he had a really difficult time coming up with the definition of what a tough guy is. And he brought up A Bronx Tale, which I thought was great, the Robert De Niro movie. And I said to myself, I'm looking at Jason. Here's the definition of a tough guy. If you can stand up there and be emotional and cry, and everybody knows he can still kick your ass, you're a tough guy.
Yeah, that's really it. The yin and the yang of it, right?
Yeah.
And I think he embodies that as much as any athlete we've seen in a long, long time.
Yeah, Jason Kelce back to being a tough guy because most of the blonde has grown out of his hair, so he can actually fashion himself a tough guy again. All right, Mike Sielski, podcast. Where can people hear it? Know anybody can pre-order the Mamba, the origin story. Give us the deets on both the podcast and the book. Okay, so the podcast is called I Am Kobe. You can get it anywhere you get podcasts. It's through iHeartRadio, so Apple, iTunes, Spotify. You can get it all places there. We're 5 episodes in. There are going to be 7 total. It's kind of telling the story of Kobe's early life. The book is called The Rise, Kobe Bryant and the Pursuit of Immortality. Get it anywhere books are sold. Please pre-order it, and it'll arrive January 11th. That's when it hits stores officially. Very nice. Mike, always a pleasure, buddy. We appreciate it whenever you hop on. Guys, I love it. Thank you so much. We'll get you back on since you guaranteed the playoffs today. Remember that, folks. Mike Sielski guaranteed the Eagles in the playoffs today. We'll have you back on when the Eagles make Philadelphia's answer to Joe Namath and Mark Messier, right, Jody? Yeah. Oh, know where he's going. Thank you very much, Mr. Sielski. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Mike Sielski here with us on Birds 365. All right, Johnny Mac, Jody Mac coming back. I think we'll put a bow on the show. Yeah.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit. The glass is for cocktails, right?
It's for this, this, and that.
Is the length of the glass equal to your...
You betcha.
But is it made out of...
Glass?
Yeah, okay, but is the rip...
Smooth?
Will you stop doing...
That?
I'm the professional here.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. All from the company that's highly awarded. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and deliciously tasting vodka. So good, it just... disappears.
field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messa & Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messa & Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
All right, come down the home stretch of a Walkthrough Wednesday edition of Birds 365. Quiz for John McMullen. Today's show number?
Wow. I'm going to go 186.
We're not that quite high.
Nah.
172, but we're
right.
climbing.
I'm in the ballpark.
You're in
I'm
the
probably
pew.
not even.
Look at that. So good job out of you. Walkthrough Wednesday. For the Birds, you're going to get a chance to talk to the players, your usual Wednesday. Oh, no. None of that today. McMullen, what the hell you been doing yourself all day?
Today is the big day of the week. Yeah, normally I'm down at the NovaCare complex all day. I leave. Well, typically I'm getting COVID tested on Wednesdays. Didn't have that. Going to have a rapid test next Wednesday, so now I got to worry about that. Yeah, it's a little bit of a change.
I got my shots. I haven't been going anywhere in masses and the like. So what's the difference between a rapid test and a regular test?
Rapid test comes back rapidly. In other words, we get one of those tests that we have to wait to see if we test negative or hopefully not positive. And we can't walk in. We can't go in the building until
you get the results.
Until we get the. Whereas the normal test is just it comes later at night. So a little bit of a change next week, but yeah. Wednesday's usually the biggest day of the week as far as availability, player availability. Yeah, don't have to do it this week. So I'm going to sit and write for about 12 consecutive hours probably.
At your desk?
Not this one. A different one. I have two different desks, Jody. Yeah, this one. By the way, I spent a half hour trying to fix this damn thing yesterday. Now I got to find the PDF, the manual. I got to reset the whole thing. Yeah, don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah,
don't buy one of these.
That would be the first clue. If you have to get a manual for your desk, that would mean there's 0% chance of me buying it. Yeah. If it includes a manual, that would eliminate the possibility of me purchasing something.
Well, yeah, this is where old school Jody McDonald wins because this desk is the bane of my existence.
No, I can run the remote control on my TV. That's where I've gotten up to speed on modern technology. Desk, give me a big old hunk of wood, and I'm good. No need
driving
for a mobile
me
desk.
Insane, Jody McDonald.
That's why I'm pimping you on it, buddy, because I can tell it makes you nuts. All right, hey, then enjoy your day off. You've got a kickback. Don't have to work at the desk, just write for 12 straight hours kind of day. Make the most of it, buddy.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna get drawn into doing some other things. I guarantee that as well.
You're not going out for a late lunch with JG.
No, I'm not going out. That's my goal this week. I'm not going out. But I got to go to Screwballs tomorrow.
Yes. Oh, shoot. We didn't even mention that today. You and me tomorrow night at Screwballs, King of Prussia. I went out earlier in the year, did the show with Krause and the crew. Good spot, by the way. In case you've never been, Screwballs, King of Prussia. We'll be there tomorrow night. Do you know what time we're taping? Because Krause said he was going to tell me. It's 6 or 6?
I think it's 6.
Okay.
I think it's 6.
And they got, oh, by the way, get there early. They got some decent food there. That was the only mistake I made last time. I got caught in a little traffic. I didn't leave early enough, so I had to wolf down what I was eating before we started taping. So leave early and enjoy the fine cuisine at Screwballs. Yes, we'll promote the snot out of that tomorrow here on Birds 365. I guarantee you that. All right, J-Mac, good show today. Always a pleasure, partner. I'll talk to you in the morning.
22 hours.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.